Alright, scholars, so welcome to another time of Maths Made Easy with the Simplicity Tutor. So if you've been following me from our first episode, you understand that we are looking at a series edition. We are working with a series edition, and the series is titled Words and Opposites in Mathematics. So in our first edition, we looked at how addition and subtractions are words and opposites. So in this episode 2, which is called Muldiv, we are going to be looking at division and multiplication. So this is to also emphasize that division is the opposite of multiplication and multiplication is the opposite of division. This knowledge will help you overcome some struggles that you have when solving problems in mathematics. So here is our first question. For some of us that have been following me since episode 1, where we talked about addition and subtraction as being words and opposites of each other, you will remember that the first question we solved, we ended at this, and I told you that I couldn't solve further because all we were dealing with as at that time or as at that episode was what? Addition and subtraction. So now we're going to be solving further because here we're going to be using the idea of division and multiplication as words and opposites to solve this question. Now before we solve further, there are some things I need us to understand. Now let's consider 2x. The bond between 2 and x is multiplication. What do I mean? What I mean is that what makes 2 and x to click together, to stay together, is multiplication, right? Just as we have here, because 2 times x is equals to what? 2x. So we need to establish that in our mind, that what binds 2 and x to give us 2x is what? Multiplication. The second thing we need to understand is what I call coefficient. So 2 is what? The coefficient of x in 2x. 2 is the coefficient of x. Now I need to help some students here because I have seen some students make this mistake, right? Now look at the equation at our right hand side, which is 2 plus x equals to 22. Now here we cannot consider 2 as a coefficient. Why? Because what binds 2 and x together is plus. For a number to be taken as a coefficient, what binds that number to an alphabet has to be multiplication. I repeat, for a number to be considered a coefficient, it has to be combined or bonded with an alphabet or a variable using the multiplication operation. Right? So it has to be multiplication. So 2 is considered as coefficient in our equation at our left hand side. Why? Because 2 is bound with x with multiplication. But in the question at our right hand side, we cannot consider it as a coefficient. Right? We can't consider it as a coefficient. So that is what I want you to understand. I will repeat. The bond between 2 and x in 2x is what? Multiplication. And the coefficient of 2x is what? 2, right? So we have to consider that. Now, here's our question. For us to solve further, we have to break this down, which is what? 2 times x equals to what? 2 times 11. 2 times x is what? 2x. And 2 times 11 is what? 22. Now, for us to solve this, we have to ask ourselves, how do we break the bond between 2 and x? How do we break the bond between 2 and x? For us to break the bond, we have to introduce the opposite of multiplication, which is what? Division. That is why we divide both sides by 2, which is the coefficient. We divide both sides by the coefficient. So we introduce division to break the bond of multiplication between 2 and x and between 2 and 11, right? So 2 cancel 2 to give us x, right? And then 2 cancel 2 to give us 11. So x equals to 11 is our final answer. So this is how we use the idea of division and multiplication to solve algebraic question. Now let's look at another question. So we have 3m equals to what? 15, right? This is the second answer we had in our second example in episode 1, right? So we are solving further. So remember, we break this down. 3 times m is what? 3m, and 5 times 3 is what? 15, right? So we can see that the bond between 3 and m is what? Multiplication. And the bond between 3 and 5 is what? Multiplication. For us to break this bond, we have to introduce the opposite of multiplication, which is what? Division. I believe most of us know what an opposite in English language. If there is war in a country and you want to remove the war, what do you introduce? You introduce the opposite of war, which is what? Peace. That is the idea we are working with here. So here we have 3 times m equals to 3 times 5. So for us to break the bond of multiplication, we introduce the opposite of multiplication, which is what? Division. And that is why we divide both sides by the coefficient, which is what? 3. So 3 cancel 3 to give us what? M. And 3 cancel 3 to give us what? 5. So m equals to 5 is what? Our final answer. So this is how you use the idea of what's an opposite in mathematics to solve algebraic questions or algebraic terms that involve division and multiplication. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow me depending on the platform you are watching this video from. Smash the like button if this tutorial was helpful to you in any way. And don't forget to share this tutorial to your classmates, to your schoolmates, to your friends around you, especially those that you know are struggling with mathematics. Thank you for watching. Till another time, I remain the Simplicity Tutor. Bye for now.